They weren't supposed to be here. High Chancellor Dravel, a serpent-skinned diplomat from the Jalen Core worlds, tapped his claws nervously on the glowing council desk. "What is the meaning of this arrival?" he hissed. "Humanity," came the answer, from a small, silver-skinned ambassador near the edge. His voice trembled despite the cold calmness of his race. "They've entered council space. Officially." No one spoke for several seconds. Then the air shifted, panic masked by protocol. "They were years away from reaching the qualifying standard for first contact," Dravel growled. "They still engage in primitive internal conflict. Their biosphere is unstable. Their leadership structure is laughably chaotic." "Yet here they are," another whispered, "with a ship none of our archives can explain. A ship that made the jump through Omega Rift without burning." That was supposed to be impossible. Even ancient Federation tech failed at that. The rift was a death trap. A black crack in space filled with gravitational pulses and radiation bursts powerful enough to snap a battleship in half like dry bone. "They call it Dauntless," said the ambassador, his voice carrying that odd human word with weight. "No escort, no fleet, just one ship. And one man." One man. Every species in that chamber, beings with wings, gills, scales, fur, and pure energy, processed that in stunned silence. "What kind of man?" Dravel asked finally. The ambassador just looked up, eyes dead still. "The kind who speaks for all of them." The doors opened. They weren't ready for him. He wasn't armored in ceremonial metals like the Vlon war priests. He didn't glow like the Archeans or wear gene pearls like the Zivali nobles. He walked in wearing simple black tactical gear, boots heavy, shoulders square, and jaw set like someone who'd been through hell and hadn't quite left it behind. He didn't bow. He didn't ask permission. He walked straight to the center platform, meant only for high representatives. "Name," Dravel snapped, recovering his voice. "Commander Ren Marlowe," the man said. His voice didn't carry like a diplomat's. It cut like a blade. Calm, but lethal. "What gives you the right to appear before the council unannounced?" Another counselor barked. "I'm not here to ask for a seat," Ren said. "I'm here to issue a warning." That made the room shift. Some scoffed. Others narrowed their eyes. No one dared speak yet. Ren stood still for a moment longer. Then he placed a small orb on the pedestal. It shimmered with a deep red pulse. "You wanted to evaluate Earth. You studied us from afar, ran simulations, assumed we'd break, kneel, or beg to be uplifted." He looked directly at Dravel. "But none of you really understood what we are." The orb flickered, then unleashed a hologram. Footage. Wars. Cities on fire. Humans in trenches, charging tanks with nothing but rifles. Men and women dragging themselves through dust and blood. One soldier shouting as he fired into overwhelming alien beasts, holding them back with rage alone. A dying medic tying off someone's artery with his own uniform. A father burying his son, then walking back into battle. The room darkened. Ren's voice dropped lower. "We are what happens when the universe forgets mercy." The silence that followed was like gravity collapsing. One of the elder counselors stood slowly. "Are you threatening us?" Ren met his eyes. "Number, I'm telling you that if you think you can fold Earth into your empire, bribe us with technology, or control us with bureaucracy, you'll break first. We're done being watched like animals. The door you opened?" He gestured behind him. "It doesn't close anymore." He stepped back. The orb powered down. The council had seen empires rise and fall. They'd seen rebellions, plagues, even planetary suicide. But none of them had ever seen a species that smiled through extinction and came back for more. Ren Marlowe turned, just as silent as when he arrived. Before leaving, he paused, looked over his shoulder, and said one last thing. "We're not asking for a place in your world. We're here to build our own." And then he was gone. But the silence he left behind was louder than any weapon. Nobody moved after Commander Ren Marlowe left the chamber. The doors hissed shut behind him, and it felt like the whole damn council had just been slapped across the face. Not by weapons, not by war declarations, but by raw, brutal truth. Drevel stared ahead, mouth slightly open, gills pulsing too fast. That human, that thing, had spoken to the most powerful beings in the galaxy like they were insects circling a fire. And the worst part? He hadn't been wrong. The Jalan Chancellor rose slowly from his coiled position and turned to face the inner circle of council lords. "This cannot stand. Earth is not ready. Humanity is not stable. We've studied them. Their species is emotionally volatile, prone to violence. Do you understand what it would mean to grant them free access to council space?" "They already have access," someone muttered. "They crossed the Omega Rift. That's supposed to be impossible." "No," said a low, gravel-voiced counselor from the Skarn Dominion. He was all bone and muscle, from a warrior race known for never showing fear. But even he didn't sound confident. "It wasn't supposed to be possible yet." Another voice, soft and trembling, added, "What if we're too late? What if they're already inside our systems, our networks?" Panic buzzed beneath the surface of protocol. "They've likely only sent a single scout. We should capture him immediately," said Drevel. "Capture?" someone else scoffed. "He walked into the Concord Hall alone, through our lockdowns, through our security. You think he came here without a plan?" They were spiraling. Meanwhile, Ren Marlowe walked back through the central corridor of the galactic core like he owned the place. He didn't glance sideways. Didn't look at the security drones hovering above. Didn't flinch when alien guards stared daggers at him. He didn't need to. Everything he'd said in that chamber had been deliberate. Every word, every pause, every moment of silence. Not because he was a diplomat. He wasn't. He'd been trained in the mud, not a university. Learned to speak by watching men bleed and trying to stop them long enough to say goodbye. He walked like a man who knew he was being watched. Because he was. As he turned the corner into the council docking ring, a young tech, blue-skinned, thin arms, trembling voice, met him with a stuttered sentence. You can't just... Your ship isn't cleared for departure." Ren didn't stop. "Then shoot me." The tech blinked. "What?" "I said shoot me if you think I'm a threat, if you think I shouldn't be walking out of here." He paused. "Otherwise move." The tech moved. Dauntless was waiting. The ship didn't look like much at first glance. No sleek curves like Archean cruisers. No gleaming alloys like Zavali trade vessels. Just heavy black plating, thick armor, brutal design. It looked like it had been built by people who didn't give a damn about elegance. Because they hadn't. The hangar lights flickered as he approached. The ship seemed to hum. Not with power, but with purpose. No crew, just Ren. That was all it needed. Inside, he stepped onto the bridge, dropped into the captain's chair, and keyed the console with a 6-digit code. The system came online instantly. "Status?" he muttered. A female voice responded, calm, synthetic, but not cold. "Council presence detected. Tracking drones following you. 42 surveillance attempts in the last 30 minutes. Shields at 87%. Omega core still stable." "Good," Ren said. They took the bait. Back in the council chambers, chaos had finally broken through the glass. "This is no longer a diplomatic concern," snapped Drevel. tail coiling in tight loops. "This is a military threat. I demand we initiate containment protocol." "You mean war," another said. "I mean security," Dravel spat. "They sent one man. What happens when they send 10,000? But others weren't so sure. "He didn't threaten us," said the Archean delegate, her golden face unreadable. "He warned us." "There's no difference." "There is. A threat is meant to provoke. A warning is what you give someone before you strike." They went back and forth like this. Politics layered on fear, wrapped in old grudges and outdated arrogance. But underneath it all, something deeper had begun to take root. Doubt. Because humans weren't supposed to be there, and yet here they were. They had crossed the Omega Rift. They had arrived with technology no one had seen before. And most dangerous of all? They hadn't come begging. They hadn't even come angry. They'd come ready. Ren was already halfway back to Earth by the time the Council decided to respond. They sent a ship, one of the newer class recon interceptors, fast, well-armed, and crewed by species specifically trained to handle unpredictable primitives. Inside that ship, Commander Etrell leaned back in his pilot seat and scoffed at the reports. "Human?" he said to his second-in-command, a soft-boned thinker species with wide, glassy eyes. "One man walks in, and now they're all scared like hatchlings. Typical Council cowards." They said he activated a Class 6 psi weapon in the chamber, projected emotional trauma directly into the minds of over 60 delegates. Etrell laughed. "Yeah, that's what I'd do too if I was losing my nerve." They approached the Dauntless's last known coordinates. It was just floating there, in the black. No power signature, no visible crew, no weapons online. "Scan it." The tech did. Frowned. "No life forms detected." "What?" "Ship's empty." "That's impossible. Where the hell is the pilot?" Before anyone could answer, the lights in their own ship flickered. Then everything went dead. "Systems offline!" the pilot shouted. "We're being boarded!" It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't weapons. It was Dauntless. The entire human ship had infiltrated their systems, shut them down from the inside, not with brute force, but with code. Elegant, brutal, terrifyingly simple code. A voice echoed through the comms. Ren's voice. "First lesson. You don't see us coming." Then silence. When the Council recovered the ship days later, they found the entire crew unconscious. No injuries. No deaths. But each of them had been left a message, burned into the wall of the command room in some kind of alloy none of their scanners could even identify. It said, "This is mercy. Next time we take the whole ship." Back on Earth, in the mountain-locked command bunker buried beneath Colorado ice, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Ren stood at the head of the table, surrounded by generals, scientists, and off-the-books operatives who had no names and even less patience. "We made contact," Ren said simply. "It worked." "Good," one of the generals replied. "And?" "They're rattled. They'll come at us with charm first. Treaties, tech offers, maybe even the illusion of partnership. But the truth is, they've already labeled us a threat." "Then let's be one," the man beside him said. Ren didn't smile. He didn't believe in false pride. But he nodded. "They've watched us die 1,000 different ways from afar, but they've never watched what happens when we stop dying and start fighting back." Another scientist leaned in. "And Dauntless?" "Still functioning. The Omega Core's stable, but we need to limit jumps. It's rewriting space-time signatures as it moves. We're not entirely sure what side effects it's causing." "You mean we're still not sure what it is?" another said quietly. "We didn't build it. Not really. We just found pieces, patched it together, gave it purpose." Ren didn't argue. He knew the truth. Humanity hadn't invented Omega Drive tech. They'd pulled it from wreckage that no other species had dared touch. Wreckage buried in a gravity well 3 clicks deep into dead space. The kind of place you only find when you're desperate or insane, which was exactly how they'd gotten it. Now it was working. And now, for the first time in galactic history, the apex predators weren't the ones in charge. Back in council space, emergency meetings were scheduled every 3 hours. Species that hadn't spoken in decades were suddenly holding joint sessions. Security systems were updated, fleet formations reconfigured, warnings sent to all outer colonies. The threat wasn't confirmed, but it was understood. And in quiet rooms behind locked doors, old empires whispered something they hadn't said in generations. Maybe it's time we put Earth down. But they didn't know Earth. They didn't know what desperation had made of mankind, what it meant to build cities out of ruins, to lose everything and keep going anyway. They hadn't seen the face of a human man bury his son, then build a rocket with the same hands. They didn't understand what kind of species turns extinction into fuel. Ren Marlowe was one man. But behind him stood a planet full of ghosts, fighters, builders, and madmen who had looked into the black and decided to punch it in the throat. The council thought they were at the top. They didn't realize the storm had just landed. The outer colonies of the council lit up like alarm beacons. Fleet movements ramped up. Civilian travel was restricted near the neutral corridors. Propaganda systems quietly began spinning a new narrative. Earth was unstable, unpredictable, and needed supervision. They didn't say the word containment publicly, but it was on every delegate's tongue in private. The real question wasn't if humanity was a threat. It was whether that threat could be neutralized. High Chancellor Drevel stood in his private chamber overlooking the city orbit of Zalkar Prime. His slit eyes focused on the data feed streaming across the holoscreen. Surveillance footage, military intelligence reports, intercepted human signals. They had it all. But none of it told him how Ren Marlowe had done it. One ship, one man, an infiltration that bypassed 6 defense grids, and a message so clear even the most delusional optimists in the council had shut up. Drevel clenched his claws behind his back. "They're playing with something they barely understand," he hissed aloud. A voice spoke from the shadows. "And what if they do understand it?" The Chancellor turned slowly. His informant was there, cloaked in black cloth, features hidden. A council spy, part of a class trained since hatchlinghood in extraction and manipulation. He was expensive, and that alone meant he was dangerous. "What do you mean?" Drevel asked. The figure stepped forward. "I've read every intercepted human transmission since the Dauntless incident. They know what they're doing. They're not experimenting. They're testing, slowly, carefully, and they're watching who watches them." Drevel didn't like the sound of that. "Then it's time we respond." The figure tilted his head. "With war?" "With a scalpel," Drevel said coldly. "Marlowe is not Earth's president. He's not their king. He's a weapon, and weapons can be broken." 3 parsecs away, Ren Marlowe stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the jagged ice fields of Luna Forge. His breath hung in the cold air, eyes fixed on the facility below, a sprawling underground structure carved into the side of the moon's secondary ridge. This wasn't Earth. This was where humanity tested its ghosts. Inside the facility, dozens of captured alien technologies, confiscated during silent retrieval missions, were being dissected, repurposed, and if necessary, destroyed. But there was one project that concerned Ren more than any other. The Archangel Frame. He walked through the security gates, past clearance scans, retinal locks, biometric blood taps, layers of paranoia that had kept Earth's most lethal secrets hidden for decades. Most Council spies didn't even know this place existed. Only a handful of men and women had access. Ren was one of them. Inside the final chamber, the Archangel frame stood tall, 8 meters of alloy, plated in a dark sheen that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Its chest glowed with a slow, ominous pulse. Omega Drive fused directly into the armor. A human pilot could step inside it, become it, fight wars from within, and survive weapons that shredded battlecruisers. But it was untested. Too dangerous, too unstable, too human. Ren stood in front of it, jaw tight. His eyes scanned the diagnostics, flicking through readouts. Then he turned as a voice approached from behind. "You sure you want to light this match?" said Colonel Bishop, a grizzled tactician with a jaw full of metal and eyes like dried-out gravel. Ren didn't look back. "They're coming." "You don't know that." "They always come eventually." Bishop stepped beside him, arms crossed. "You rattled them. That's not the same as starting a war." "Isn't it?" Ren asked. "I stepped into their sanctum, humiliated them in front of every major species in the quadrant, showed them we crossed a rift they said was suicide. That kind of embarrassment doesn't get ignored." "So what's the plan?" Ren finally turned to face him. "We give them a taste of something worse." Meanwhile, the Council had already moved forward with their scalpel. They didn't send a fleet. They sent something quieter. A diplomatic ship, polished, unarmed, carrying a representative chosen not for his status, but for his gift. Ambassador Varel, an empath. His species didn't fight wars with weapons. They fought by unraveling minds, slipping inside memories, exposing fears, turning brothers into enemies with a single whispered phrase. His job was to land on Earth, extend peace, learn what he could, and break Ren Marlowe from the inside out. Ren met him on neutral ground, an artificial habitat built over the Atlantic Trench, surrounded by storm shields and surveillance dampeners. No reporters, no diplomats, just 2 men, one human, one alien, sitting across a steel table. Varel smiled in that slow, unnatural way his kind did. "I must admit, you're not what I expected." Ren's face didn't move. "Good." Varel folded his hands. "The Council isn't seeking war. We want partnership, understanding, coexistence." "Lies are a poor opening strategy." Varel's smile widened. "Then I'll be honest. We fear you. You're unpredictable, brutal, savage." Ren leaned forward. "And yet you're here, alone, in human territory, knowing damn well I could snap your neck and toss you into the sea." "Because you won't," Varel said. "You sure?" Varel didn't answer. He closed his eyes instead and entered. Ren felt it, like cold hands brushing against his thoughts. Not mind reading. Worse, feeling. His pain, his rage, his memories. His brother dying in his arms. His mother's last words before the plague took her. His first kill. The faces of the people he couldn't save. Varel's expression changed. He wasn't smiling now. "My God," he whispered. Ren stood slowly, the steel chair creaking beneath him. "You see it, don't you? What we really are." Varel looked up, voice trembling. "You've survived things that would shatter most species." Ren stared down at him. "We didn't survive. We adapted. We made our pain useful. You think we're unstable? We weaponized grief. We breed fury. We don't collapse. We climb." Varel stood abruptly, breathing uneven. You're a threat to galactic order." "No," Ren said, stepping closer. "We're the correction." Varel left that day with his head down, and his thoughts silent. When he reported back to the council, he gave no speech, just a single statement. "They're not ready for war." Dravel leaned forward. "You mean they're not prepared?" Varel looked him dead in the eye. "We're not." Earth wasn't waiting anymore. The Archangel frame was activated, the Omega core was tuned, and Ren was already back in the Dauntless, punching coordinates for a recon jump into forbidden space. He wasn't after intel. He was after leverage. Rumors had surfaced about a lost station. Council-built, long abandoned, drifting in a radiation zone just outside the Veiled Belt. They said it housed records of war crimes, bioweapons, forbidden tech, all sealed after the Skarn uprising a century ago. Ren wanted it, because the only thing more dangerous than a human with nothing to lose was a human who knew what you were hiding. Space doesn't scream. It watches. And as the Dauntless coasted into the black zone beyond the Veiled Belt, every sensor on board warned Ren the same thing. This place wasn't abandoned. It was exiled. The Veiled Belt wasn't on most maps anymore. It had been redacted, renamed, rewritten. All official documents called it a resource-depleted anomaly sector. But Ren had seen enough war zones to know a sanitized lie when he heard one. He tapped the nav screen, scanning the rotting wreckage drifting past. Broken satellites, shredded war drones, the hollow shells of old carriers, all of it slowly circling the same dead point like vultures around a corpse. And at the center? A station the size of a small city, Council Class 9 Archive and Biotech Containment Hub. Ithra, buried, forgotten, and sealed behind a no-fly warning so aggressive it would trigger automatic missile lockdown if triggered by any Council ship. Good thing the Dauntless wasn't a Council ship. Ren eased the controls forward, driving the Omega drive into half-phase. The ship shimmered, slipping between solid and subspace, just long enough to slide through the debris ring without triggering any ancient defense protocols. The Council wanted this place to stay buried, which meant it was exactly where Ren wanted to be. Inside, the Ithra station was silent. Not dead, not disabled. Silent. Lights flickered in low-power mode. Gravity was minimal. Most of the interior looked untouched by time, preserved by shielding that still hummed under the strain of 100 years. Ren stepped through the docking seal with his weapon at the ready. The station's automated system scanned him once, then twice. No lockdown, no alarm. Just a whisper of power, like something had been waiting for a human signature, which meant someone had been here before. Or worse, someone expected him now. The first sector he entered was clean. Sterile halls lined with containment pods and sealed medical archives. Names in alien scripts, species types, biohazard warnings in glowing red lines. Ren moved slow, eyes scanning each room. This wasn't a hospital. It was a lab. And it hadn't just been built to study, it had been built to experiment. He passed a chamber full of what looked like artificial wombs, some broken open, others still sealed. Inside, deformed humanoid shapes floated in suspended animation, some with twisted limbs, some with too many eyes, some barely formed at all. Not human, but close. The logs confirmed it. Xeno-human hybrid program, Operation Breach Wall. Terminated year 5127. Ren stared at the data. This wasn't just a lab. It was the Council's first attempt at creating a crossbred species, mixing human resilience with Council-engineered obedience, the kind of thing Earth never knew about. Until now. He kept moving. Sector by sector he found more. Experimental weapon systems, neural override chips, soul-mapping tech that could transfer memories between hosts. It was war science, made during a time the Council swore was peaceful. And then he found the core room, a black vault, sealed with 12 levels of clearance. Ren placed his hand on the pad. The screen blinked. Processed. Access granted. He stared. That wasn't possible. He wasn't in the system. No Earth citizen should be recognized here. Unless his DNA was already cataloged. Unless they had him on file. He stepped into the vault and stopped cold. It was a prison. 6 holding tanks lined the walls, each surrounded by force fields so dense they shimmered like glass dipped in oil. Inside each one, a single being floated, suspended in stasis, breathing, alive. They weren't fully alien, but they weren't human either. Tall, muscular, with strange bone ridges, half-formed wings, dark hair, and jagged implants along their spines. Ren walked closer to the center console. Project Echo. Human Warborn Initiative. These weren't weapons, they were soldiers. Soldiers made from his species. Failed prototypes, test subjects, discarded. But one of them wasn't asleep. Ren froze as the figure in tank number 3 opened his eyes. Pale blue, burning with something that wasn't quite rage, but something older, deeper, recognition. The thing locked eyes with him and moved forward, pressing a hand to the glass. Ren raised his pistol, heart hammering. The console beeped. Subject identified. Echo 03 genetic match, 72.4%. Ren Marlowe. He staggered back. That wasn't just a hybrid. It was cloned from him. Ren didn't know how long he stood there. He didn't speak, didn't breathe, just stared at the face of a thing that wore parts of him like armor. And then it spoke. Its mouth didn't move, but its voice hit directly in his head. They made me from your ruin. Ren's hand tightened around the pistol. You speak English? I speak what you think. Why? Because I was built to kill what you are. Ren took a step forward. And what exactly am I? The creature's lips curled in something close to a smile, but it wasn't kind. It was hungry. A mistake. Suddenly, alarms blared. Ren turned, gun up. The station shook. Something had entered the outer field. Council ships. He'd been followed. Back in orbit, 3 cloaked interceptors decloaked in perfect formation. No insignia. No standard broadcast frequencies. Just raw black metal and council signature suppression drives humming like jackals ready to pounce. On the lead ship, Drevel's personal assassins watched the station through wide-view scanners. Confirm presence, the commander ordered. Dauntless is docked, human biosigns inside, no other activity. The commander nodded once. Seal it. Inside, Ren watched as the access corridor sealed itself with thick blast doors. He checked his comms. Jammed. Omega drive. Dampened. Escape. 0. He looked back at Echo 03. Tell me how to kill them. The thing in the tank smiled wider now. Let me out. Ren hesitated. This thing was dangerous. Unstable. Part him, part weapon. It might be worse than whatever was coming. But Ren wasn't stupid. He knew when the rules had changed. He slammed his palm on the release switch. The tank hissed. Pressure dropped. The fluid drained. Echo 03 stepped out, steam rising from its skin. It didn't fall. It didn't stagger. It marched. Ren handed him a weapon. Standard human plasma rifle. The hybrid held it for a second, then tossed it aside. I have better. It flexed its hands. Long, curved blades slid out from under its wrists. Biometal, fused into the bone. Ren nodded. Guess we're doing this old school. The ground shook again. Council troops were inbound. Ren turned to face the entrance. Let's see if they're ready for the thing they built in secret. Echo 03 laughed. A deep, gravelly sound that sounded almost human. Almost. Above, the council commander watched the station light up. Fire protocol? One of the officers asked. The commander hesitated. His orders